short function, for example, like 1 or 2 lines of code, you don't need to write a function. Instead, you can write the inline function, which is the anonymous function or lambda function. You need to know the syntax for the lambda function. Syntax is lambda, then arguments, colon, expression. So let me write a function like our very basic function like a and b, and we are returning a plus b, or whatever. You can just write c equal a plus b, then return c. Altogether, I can write return a plus b. Both are the same. Okay, now this is our function. How we can write this function in the lambda function? We have like 1 line of code. So we can write the lambda keyword, and then the arguments. What are the arguments? A and B. A and B are the arguments. Then colon. What's the expression? A plus B. So I can write this one as a function. But you can see here, I'm assigning the whole lambda statement as a variable, like add. So this add can act as a function. So let me print this function, like add 56. I'm calling this one as a function, but this is like a statement. It will return 11. Okay. So for our previous sorting, like list of tuples, this is the length, this is the line number, this is the length, this is the line number, not the line number, this way 5, then 10, 2. So the first one is the length of a line, second one is the line number. So by default, if you sort this list, it will sort by the first item. Like if you just write sorted L1, it will sort by the first item. (10, 12, 14). But if you need to sort by the second item, I told you to write a variable like key, and you need to define a function like sort by second, for an example. Then you write that function. Sort by second, and whatever the value, like a list, I'm just writing x. X is a list, and we're returning x1. That means the second item of that list. So instead of that one, can I rewrite this code so that it can work as a lambda function? Like I'm rewriting this function as a lambda function. How I can do that?
Sort by 2 equals lambda x.
Sort by 2 equals lambda?
I'm like in an earlier line, you would write sort by 2 equals lambda, the function.
Oh, this way, right? So sort by 2 equal lambda, then what's the x, the argument?
Oh,
X or x1?
The autocode jumped the answer. So x.
The autocode, okay. The x is the argument and x1 is the statement, right? So what you can do, we can either write this way or we can write the whole thing here. What most of you have done for some of your project, but I'm not sure whether you have known or not known, but now you need to know it. How you can rewrite a function to a lambda function. Okay. Now, if I'm going to create another one, like I would like to add those two numbers, like add function. What I'm going to do, I'm going to add, this is a list, but not exactly this one. No, I cannot write other than the sorting in the sorted list. But I'll go through those lambda function later when I'll discuss the map, reduce, filter function. Like, do you understand what is a lambda function? How you can use it, when you can use it. So whenever the function body is really small, like 1 or 2 lines of code. So if you have like 10 function of those 2 lines of code, it will be like a longer list of function. It is hard for you to navigate those functions. In that particular way, in that particular case, you can rewrite those function in a lambda function, like an inline function, to avoid those function definition, function calling. Okay. Now the higher order function, I'll be coming to the lambda function again when I'll discuss the map reduce function. So the higher order function, so what is a higher order function? What is the definition? Typically higher order functions are, we're calling a function inside a function. This is basically a function composition, but here we're not calling the function, but just the name as an iterable. Let me go through the map function first. What is a map function? The map function applies a function to every item of 1 or more iterables and returns an iterator of the result. Typically, it can work on Python 3 and above. If you're working with Python 2.9, some other version below 3, map function may not work. Make sure your Python version is 3 point something. Okay. So what is the syntax? The map, then the function, the header, and the iterable. Let me go through an example. For an example, here is a list. I would like to convert this list to a squared list. So this is my list. I need to create a list of the squared value. So for a naive way, I need to write a loop for item in nums, and I need to create another like nums2 is the squared one. And here in the nums2, I need to append item multiply 2, right? So the nums2 will print you the squared value of each item. Now, if I need to write a map function, in that map function, I can do the same thing in a single pass by writing the function name here and the iterable. What is our iterable? Our iterable is nums. And what is the function? Function is like squaring, right? So I need to write a function like def square me, putting x, returning x square. Actually, not multiply by 2. It should be multiplied by x. Item multiplied by item. So now I can write the square me here as a function, and here's my num. In one single pass, it will return an iterator, which will give me squared value of this number. So this will return an iterator, not a known data structure. So what are the known data structures? So far we have learned list, tuples, dictionaries, sets, but it is not a known data structure. It's like an iterator of map variable. So let me print this first to see what it is actually. It prints the map object, which is not known to us. So what I need to do, we need to convert to our known data structure. Is very common, is like a list. The list will give me a list of all squared value. Okay. So the map is, well, the question is like when you are using a map. For example, as any interview, they're asking you, can you create a list? Like, so you're given a list, you need to create a list of all squared value. Given that, you cannot use the for loop. You cannot use a loop. Not so well, definitely. If you're not asking me using a for loop, I can use a while loop. But yeah, if they're asking you do not use any loop, then probably math function can work. And it's like a Pythonic way to write your code. Whenever you have a long lines of code, you can just read it in one single line. And you can see here, in that particular function, I can write a lambda function. How I can convert a lambda function? Lambda, a for an example, a multiply a. It could be any variable, but make sure they are. So this is like an argument, this is statement. If you're writing x here and a there, is not valid. If it is an x, the argument, like a local variable, those are the statement. So I don't need to write those function here, just one single line. You are giving me a nums list. I'm giving you a squared nums list with all of those lambda and map function. So this is typically called a Pythonic version of this code. Yes.
This is particular to Lambda. Is there a utility for it if you're not going to iterate over multiple things?
For the map function or lambda?
Just Lambda.
Lambda actually is just an anonymous function. So not necessarily, so you can rewrite this code as the square me. So this square, so lambda function is replacing the square me function. That's it, not the map function.
I just wonder if there was like alternative utility for it if you're not going to be iterating through multiple things.
Well, not necessarily it is an iterative. For example, in this particular case, it is not iterative, right? I'm writing a square two function, like an add function. I can use that function later on. I know it's like in one single line of function. I don't write a function definition. I can just write add is equal a lambda function. And later I can use this one. I haven't used any iterative here. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. So square me, we can write this lambda one. What else we can do with the math function? For example, like this one, I would like to sum those two lists, 1 plus 10, 2 plus 20, 3 plus 30. So what I can do, math function, the first one is the function, second one is the iterator. So second one are A and B, iterator. It could be multiple iterators. And this one is a function where every time it gets X and Y and add those two numbers. So, excuse me, if I rewrite this code, I can rewrite this code in this way, like summed. This is our map function. Here's our function and iterator. What are the iterators? I have two iterators here, A and B. Okay. What is my function? I'm just writing F1 instead of FUN. F1. And what it does, it takes two inputs, could be anything, P and Q, for example, and it returns P plus Q. I can replace this F1 with this lambda. And A and B are the iterators. So don't get confused, like lambda function, just up to this comma, first comma. Like lambda, then some arguments, then colon, then statement. Then when there is a comma, it is end with the lambda function. And after that, these are the iterators, A and B. In this particular case, we have two. In this particular case, we have one. Does that make sense? Okay. Here's an example of multiplication. there is a list of tuples, and what it is doing, it is taking first item with the second item. This is a pair. It is taking first item, multiply with the second item. So P0 with P1, 2 multiply 3 is 6, right? Then 4 multiply 5 is 20. So it will create 6, 20. That means within same iterator, you are using 2 variable to iterate 2 items. Any question about the math function? So for example, here is a list of your grades. For example, 10 and not 10, 89, 87, 90, then maybe 100, then maybe 75. These are grades. What I'm going to do at the very end of the semester, I would like to give you a grades point of 10. I don't need to give you 10 every time. In that case, I can write a script. Here's like grades by 10 is my function. When whatever the value I have here, I am returning x plus 5. In a naive way, what I can do, I need to iterate the item just like this. Like this one. I need to create a new list, nums2 or grade 2. For each item, I need to add plus 10, right? In a short way, what I can do, I can write a math function. In that math function, I can call this function. And what is my iterator? Nums. Okay. Now, if I need to rewrite this code with a lambda, then what I need to do, lambda x plus 5. This is how you need to write this type of code. I haven't written this line in the very first place. I have rewritten this code in this way with this function. And then later, I converted this one to math. Then I use this grades by 10 function. And later I have used the lambda one. So step by step. If you're jumping to here directly, probably you'll get lost. You need to know from the beginning what you are doing. What is the naive way? The naive way is adding 10 numbers, adding 10 points to each number. Well, this is the way. Now, how you can convert it? Well, I can use a math function. The math function can do the same thing without a for loop. And what is the syntax of a math function? The math, the function header, and the iterator. Probably have seen there, I have used function header, not function calling. So this is function header, and this is function calling. If you're using parentheses, that means you are calling a function. We are not calling a function here. If you're using calling a function within a function, it's like function composition. We are not using this one. This is the math function. We're using a function header inside a function. And then later you can convert this function to the lambda function. Over the time, you will get experience, and then you can write those things in one single line. But right now, I think you should start from the naive way. Starting from the beginning, then converting one item at a time to the advanced concept, and finally you'll have this one. Then another type of function is like a filter function. Filter function are doing the same thing, but it applies a predicate, which is like a true or false to each element of an iterable, and yields those elements for which the predicate is true. It only finds the true. The syntax is the same: filter, function, and iterable. So let me find this one. Like, I have a list of numbers from 1 to 10. What I can do, I can use a range function. The range function will give me a list of numbers from 0 to 9. What I need to do, I need to find out the odd number, for example, from this list. How I can do that? For item in nums, what is the logic of using, like, finding an odd number? Whether the item is odd or even? Module by 2. Is the odd or even? Well, the module 2, then if it returns 0, then it's an even, right? If it is not returning 0, that it is an odd. So what I can do here, right? It's not equal 0. That means it is an odd number, right? Print that item. And then I need to create another list like nums odd. And I can add this item to here. So nums odd append the item. And finally, I can print the nums odd. It prints the odd. If I change the logic to even, it will print the evens, right? This is our function. This is our naive way. So this is our logic basically, right? So what I can do, I can write a function def is odd. It takes an item and checks if the item is divisible by 0, it returns true, otherwise return false. Right? Instead of this checking, I can call this one. Right? Now, I can use this for loop to the map function, but somehow for that map function, I need to do those functions again and again. What we can do, since it's like a filtering, we can use the filter function, which is doing the both operations. So what I can do here, I can write a filter function where I am putting the function definition, like function header, and then the iterables. Now, instead of this, what's the problem? Is odd, number, filter, list. I don't see any error. Oh. It's the filter type of object, the same way like map object. So we need to convert this one to our known data structure like list. It will have this one. Now, I need to convert this one to our lambda one. How we can do that? Lambda item. What is the expression? So since it is returning true, so we need to print the true one here. I'm putting the item there. So if I'm going to rewrite this code, I can rewrite this code in this way, right? I don't care about the false one. If it is true, I can only, if it is true, I can only print it here. If it is a false, I don't care. So that's what I have written here. If it is a true, I can only care. I'm just rewriting this is odd function to the lambda function. Now it will give you the same. So again, step by step, whenever you are doing any filter operation, make sure you understand the very basic one. You can convert your code logic to the basic one. Then from there, you can just rewrite your code to the filter. Then in the filter, there is a function. If the function is really small, you can convert it to lambda. If it is like a bigger, then probably you cannot. Okay. That's what they have used here. So it's like an even. So if it is returning true, so basically this and this return true. If it is not returning true, it will not validate that value. It will discard that value. We can also filter some numbers from a list. For example, this is our list. I would like to filter only the non-values, not the non-values. Then it will just filter without the non-values. Just a hello, 0, and 1. So other non-values will be returned 0. Here's an example of is positive. Some of you have used some function for project 3, whether the iteration number is positive or not. You could use this one in one single line. Here's your input. You're just putting this is positive to a lambda function. If it is positive, just return the true. Otherwise, return the false. But this is basically a filter. It is filtering from a iterator to a new iterator. It will create a new iterator. Now the question is, can you use a tuple here instead of a list? Yes or no? Or both? Yes? What's the reason for yes? Tuple is what?
The tuple being changed.
That's the question. Is it changing? Are you changing the tuple? We're not actually. That's why tuple is okay. We're actually doing the operation over the tuple and creating a new tuple or new data structure. So we're not modifying the tuple. That's why tuple is okay. Okay, so the last type of higher order function is the reduce function. Reduce function is not similar to map and filter one. So map and filter can only work with iterable returns and new iterable based on the filtering or doing some other operation. But for the reduce, it will produce a single value from a iterator. For an example, you would like to add all of the numbers from a list. You'd like to multiply all of the numbers from a list, or you can just create a cumulative sum one at a time from two lists. You need to use the reduce function there. So function definition, syntax is reduce, then function, then iterable, but it will not return a iterable. So for map and filter, it returns a new iterable, but for the reduce, it is not returning an iterable. And one important thing is, like, whenever you're using a reduce, make sure you are importing these things. Reduce is not a built-in Python function. Map and filter are, but reduce is not. So you need to import from the function tools, func tools. Func tools is the library. You need to import the reduce function from there. Then only you can use this one. So what it is doing here? Well, there is another, the parameter is like initializer. It is default. So the default value is 0, but you can initialize the initializer. So what it is doing here in the reduce function, here is my function. Accumulator and x. Every time it takes accumulator plus x. That means it takes 1 and 2, create 3, 3 and 3, create 6, 6 and 4, create 10. This is how it works. Unless you are specifying any initializer. If you specify any initializer, it starts counting from there. From 10. 10 plus 1, 11. 11 plus 2, 13. 13 plus 3, 16. 16 plus 4, 20. So I have written the lambda function here without writing the normal function definition, since you are exploring lambda right now. Are you? Okay, at least you understand it. There's some example of multiplication. Here, multiplication is a function from the operator module, not just our normal multiplication, but it takes two parameters and multiply those two values. So we're using that particular function, and here is our num, our iterator, our initializer is 1. If you're not using initializer 1, then probably it will start from here. 2 multiply 3, 6, 6 multiply 4, 24. If you use 0, the answer is 0. I'm not sure if we don't use 1, will it return 24 or 0? That means it starts from the first item. Initializer doesn't, like the first item is the default value for the initializer. But 0 will return definitely 0, multiplying 0 with all those numbers. Now, if you remember, converting a list to string, string to list, how you have converted a string to list and list to strings? Do you remember? Here's a string. How we have converted this thing to list? Like list of words, for example, not the list of characters. Well, if you just like list and str1, it will just create a list of all characters, right? But if you need to convert those things in a word list, what? Strip. Strip? Strip is just removing the spaces.
Split.
Split, yes. Split. So split. So what is the delimiter? By default is a space. We don't need to worry about it. So it will return a list of strings, right? List of words, basically. And then here's a list of words. How we can convert it back to the original string? That's a tricky one.
Join.
Join? Good. Well, you both old. Oops. Okay, join. What is the join? You need to specify how you are going to join, right? So we're trying to join by the space. And what we're going to join? All list. This is what we have done before, right? List to string, string to list. Okay. Now coming back to here. Here is a list of words. I would like to create a string from this list. Well, I know the reduce function. Reduce function can accumulate all of those things by your defined specification. Your specification is like you are adding two words by space. That's what we're doing here. Here's your A and B. So A and B is like two values at a time. And they are adding those two numbers, A space B. And what we're passing here? Words. So if you don't remember split function, or if the interview asks you to not use split function, do not use the join function, then you thought, well, what should I do here? The answer is not no. You know some other ways to solve it. The way is this. In the reduce function, we're adding multiple items. First and second by space, second and third by space. Since we don't have any fourth item, so we're done here. It will print to a string. This is another way we can convert a list to a string. Like a replacement of join function. Any question? This is a like this concept is really an advanced concept. So typically people are not using too much of them unless they're expert. I don't expect you to write those things in expert way. But yeah, for your assignment, you need to do that. Do you understand those three concepts, three higher order functions, and the anonymous function, lambda function? At least some basics. But yeah, over the time when you work with some examples, then you'll have more expertise on those things. Okay. Here's some examples of combining map, filter, reduce. So what we're doing here, filter even number, square them, and sum the result. Well, here's a list of numbers. Someone asks you to filter the even numbers, square them, and sum them up. So first filter, we filter by the even numbers, then we square it. Here's the single line of functions. And finally, we can add it up. Now, if I write those three expressions in one single expression like that, it looks like more comprehend, right? But it is not that. It's not that hard. So starting with reduce, right? Reduce to what? So here's my reduce function. Here's my reduce function for the squares. How we're getting the squares? The map function. Replacing the map function here. Then the evens. What's the evens? Evens the filter function. But if you're writing this type of code, I think after 5 minutes, you don't understand your code. And if I ask you, can you describe your code? Well, I haven't written this code. So it is like less readable things. But at least you know how to comprehend it. If someone asks you, can you write those things in one single line? Yes, I can do that. So you're printing the total. So you're just printing just one single line. Someone asks you to find the even numbers, square them, sum them up, and ask you to use only one single line of code. Well, in that particular case, you can do that. But not in our traditional programming work or coding assignments. Okay, there's some more examples. You can go through this, like those examples. This is really a good concept. At least it can help you to find an alternate way whenever you're solving a problem. As I told you, as an interviewer, when someone asks you, do not use a loop, then what can I think of solving this problem? Well, definitely an iterable with an iterable like map, reduce, or filter. Map and filter returns an iterable, but reduce doesn't. Reduce like typically add, sum, subtract, those things like 2 or 3 things together or multiple things together. It will return one single result. But map and filter is just doing the same thing on that particular iterator. Okay. Any question? Okay. I think if you have any question, you can read this document. I think I put a lot of information here. If you have any other question, obviously you can stop me in the next class.